bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good, yes, the Birds are back on the field Thursday morning on Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys, Jody McDonald and John McMullen. I was here yesterday on Birds 365. John McMullen was not because he was otherwise needed. That would be down in South Philadelphia at the NovaCare Complex to observe everything went on for the first day of camp for the Philadelphia Eagles. Johnny Mack, you correctly predicted that Howie Roseman would join Nick Sirianni at the pre-podium session before they got out there on the field. He did just that. And then you got 58 minutes of Philadelphia Eagle football. Where did you learn more? Listening to the coach and the general manager or actually watching the Eagles go through their activity?
I guess the practice. You don't get much from Howie in these type situations. Nick was a little bit more forward, I guess. So I think we got more out of Nick than Howie, certainly. But it was typical Howie when he gets asked about the linebackers. We're always looking to, improve if there's an option. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just not. It's pretty obvious and, not that revealing. But Nick gave us a few nuggets, but you always get more with them being on the field for the first time. And, they talk before, Nick talks before practice at training camp. I wish he talked after practice for the reason, he was pretty vocal yesterday. And, there's a number of pre-snap penalties late in the practice, and he got on the bullhorn and he was giving the defense the what. And, I would have liked to have asked him about that after the practice. Now you got to wait till he's not talking again till Sunday, I believe. So,
right.
I think part of that was calculated, to be honest, but, I would like to ask the coach there. I think it was an opportunity to say, we're not NFC champions anymore. We're at the bottom of the hill with everybody else. I think that was an opportunity. I think it was party was pissed off, but part was calculated. I think that's how I took at it, because everybody's sloppy on the first day of practice. And red zone. That's been a unique part of Nick Sirianni's plan. He's obsessed with situational football. First day of practice now every year, red zone, all red zone stuff. So tight quarters. You got to see Dallas Goedert look tremendous. James Bradbury looked as savvy as ever defensively. Linebackers did not look good. Pass rush looks very good. So a lot of the stuff we expected, but it's only the first day, as Jason Kelsey would say.
One of the things that I thought was telling with, or at least you could sink your teeth into a little bit about Sirianni speaking for the practice was it's going to be running back by committee. Don't worry about who gets the first carry in today's practice. This truly is a position where a lot of who started yesterday and who played with the ones was certainly analyzed and looked at yesterday. He said, don't even go there with the running backs because we're going to shuttle everybody in with the ones. And then he went right out and did it and used all of his running backs. He's not ready to commit to running back. And I believe it's because that truly is a competition. That they're open-minded at running back and made the best man win. That's the way it's supposed to be on a football team. If you don't have a guy who's locked in, been doing it for years, maybe contract even plays into that. There's no contract issues with the running backs. None of them are making big money. So I think it is truly going to be a meritocracy back there. And the best running back is going to get the majority of the catches, touches, carries, whatever it breaks down to. I think they're very open-minded there. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with that to a certain degree. Now, you say we always talk about this. What do you mean by running back by committee? I think in training camp, he's telling the truth. Like he's going to rotate guys through, but he's looking for the guy. He's looking for the lead back. I talked to him in the offseason. He made it pretty clear that they want a lead back. In other words, they don't want, to go, all right, it's this guy for this week and this guy for next week. They want somebody to seize that mantle. And if somebody doesn't, it's probably a bad sign because they want it. But they don't know who it is.
Right.
And that part is true. And he said, don't read into Boston Scott getting the first rep. And that kind of, to me, it's a 3-horse race, to be honest. But with running backs, the most interesting part is they used Swift in a bunch of different roles as a receiver in the red zone, and that to me is something to put an asterisk by because we always talk about, are they going to throw the football more to the running back? I think they are, but design throws to DeAndre Swift, not dump offs, not that kind of stuff. They're going to try to create mismatches on purpose occasionally, but then you get into the murky waters of that sounds good, but you want to get the ball to AJ Devontae and Dallas. It's like that's part of the problem with the Eagles offense is they're so good with that wide receiver tight end combination. I can't worry about the other stuff because those guys are always open. But they do have that mentality of he's a really good receiver. Let's use it, but not in the dump off fashion and things like that. That's where I think Jalen Hurts talked after practice and talked about the uniqueness of his game. He said, I want to embrace the uniqueness of my game. That the Eagles embrace it. So, they want them to, they don't want to turn them in. It's kind of weird to me that people want to take away that uniqueness.
Let me see if you agree with this stance. You were there, I wasn't, but many people have reported on and described the way that they use Swift in the all red zone practice that they had yesterday. Would you call the attempts from where he was positioned on the field and when they did throw the ball his way, created touches, manufactured touches? Because that's something you and I talk about enough. You're not a big fan, unless, of course, it's Kyle Shanahan who's doing the manufacturing. He seems to be very good at it. Not necessarily a strength of the Sirianni era 2 years in. Is that something we're going to see from the Eagles, manufactured touches for a guy like Swift?
Well, when I say manufactured touch player, I mean more of, a jet sweep guy, an orbit motion guy, a guy who doesn't necessarily run great routes, maybe a little bit raw, so you can't get them the ball in conventional ways, but they're such great athletes, you want to give them the ball in space. So no, it was more of a regular part of the offense. And, they use a lot of empty sets, for example. So where they have 5 receivers and nobody in the backfield, he was split out as one of the receivers in that type of look. Now, again, people get caught up too much in labeling personnel groupings, because when you're 5 wide, it doesn't mean you have 5 receivers out there. It means the tight end split out, the running back is split out, and you're trying to create some kind of matchup advantage. It was more of the typical way they run their offense. We weren't seeing jet sweeps and orbit mode and things like that. The Eagles don't do that. I think they should do it a little bit more, just to throw a curveball to opposing defenses. We talked about that a bunch when Nick Sirianni, remember, they were dead last in motion during his first year. And that's when Nick said, you never want to be bottom 5 in anything in the NFL. And he realized he had to do a little bit more of it. And by the way, it worked. They did a quarterback draw to perfection that fooled both linebackers, and Jalen Hurts went right up the middle for about 5-6 yard touchdown. Not even touched, nobody near him. And that came off some motion. So they're cognizant of that, but no, they're not going to be a manufactured touch team. They're just, that's not in their sort of mentality.
Right. I was just trying to get your definition of it, because I know you've been kind of outspoken. You don't consider that manufactured touches when you have a guy like Swift lined up outside of the backfield and an open backfield, no running backs behind Hurts. But overall, for day one, would you call the practice sloppy? And everyone is expected to be at least somewhat sloppy day one. But was this above and beyond sloppy for the Eagles, either the 2 previous camps that Sirianni's run, or just as many Eagle camps you've ever been to? Because day one's day one, no matter who the coaching staff is.
Yeah, day one's day one. So yeah, but it was sloppy, and they know it was sloppy. They even joked about it after. Some of the PR people, we should, take a look at some of your drafts and how sloppy they are when taking a shot at us. But yeah, it was sloppy, and it's fair. And Nick Sirianni will admit it was sloppy. And he took advantage of it. Like I said, when I said, I think it was a little bit calculated to say, at one point he basically said, this is how bad teams beat you when you do shit like this, and screaming on the bullhorn. So, yeah, it was sloppy, but it's day one. And that's, Jason Kelsey. Sometimes I think with Jason, Jason's so good, and so, he's been around for so long. Jason doesn't need this. He doesn't. I talk about it all the time. But, when you're at that position in your career and you're that good, I think sometimes you get lost in that other people might need it, and maybe you should be a little bit more alarmed than Jason Kelsey. But I don't think you should be alarmed. I think it was sloppy. And you say, all right, let's fix it and let's clean it up. And I think it was an opportunity. And I think Nick Sirianni showed, sort of savviness, take this opportunity to point out that if anybody thinks, we're going to waltz back to the NFC Championship game, take this opportunity to say, we're not. There's going to be some issues. And he did.
And they get a chance to tighten things up today in the walkthrough they're having, not the practice, a walkthrough here that will hopefully be a little bit tighter than practice day one was. But again, no panic flares being thrown up.
No, and by the way, most of the sloppiness was with the second and third team players. So add that into, I think there was one false start with the starting offensive line. Most of the sloppy stuff was backup players too. So you got to factor that into the mix as well.
Yeah, Jalen's accuracy day one, as crisp as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, he was fine. Again, it's really tight quarters in the red zone. So those quarterback stats that you see jumping around, the Eagles hate that. But, it's like spring training baseball. You're working on specific things, and, maybe not everybody realizes what you're working on. And so I don't get caught up in those numbers, but he was fine. I mean, to me, he's so he's so much better than Marcus Mariota and obviously Tanner McKee or Ian Book. But his process, you can see his confidence. He's much more confident. He's processing things quicker. And he talked about that's just experience. The more you play, the more you understand what you're seeing and what's going on. I have no concerns over Jalen Hurts. I have a lot of concerns over the backup quarterback, but I have no concerns over Jalen Hurts. And obviously the hope is he's completely healthy and you don't have to worry about that.
And the thing that I like best about Jalen yesterday was not on the field, what he told us off the field. My only concern, and I try to keep this in proper perspective, it's a minimal concern. He's going to be dedicated. He's going to put in the work. He's going to be a leader. The only thing I had concern was that his meteoric rise last year from going middle of the pack NFL quarterback, a lot of people had him down in the 20s, to certainly in the top 5, number 2 on the field behind only Patrick Mahomes in the MVP, that maybe the pull of Jalen Hurts would be a bit much, that everybody would want a little of Jalen's time.
Well, you talked about Netflix, the show, quarterback. You got asked to do it. Yeah.
Thanks for jumping in and finishing my sentence for me there, John. That's exactly what I was going to get at. The fact that he said he was not only offered Netflix this past year, could have been him instead of Kirk Cousins and or Marcus Mariota. They were going to get Mahomes if they get Mahomes. But they've already asked him for next year because they've already got the series cleared for year number 2. So they've already started doing some of the recording. And he said, thank you, no. So the fact that national outlets want a piece of Jalen Hurts and his time, which is going to take away from his preparation no, he's not doing it. Thank you very much, Jalen. And the only reason why I brought it up was because he's such a good dude that he's not an ego guy who's going, all right, can't be bothered with this. No. He's too good a guy, if anything, but he's also got his mindset and focused on what he needs to for year number 1, which is very important, at least in my estimation. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Got 2 Eagle beat guys coming your way. After the first practice, we need guys who understand what the Eagles getting ready for a season is like. This year particularly, but in previous seasons, and being able to compare where this team is at, where other Eagle teams were when they got their season underway. Old school first, up to date, standing next to Johnny Mac, sweating down there at Eagles camp yesterday, second. Les Bowen, longtime Eagle beat writer and host of Bowen on the Birds podcast, will be up first. And then in hour number 2, Chris Franklin from NJ.com going to jump in with us. Appreciate the Eagle fans being in bright and early as the season gets underway here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
And the big story on Action News?
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust, and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up.
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got John McMullen, Jody McDonald. We are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, longtime Eagle beat reporter, and now podcast host of Bowen on the Birds, Les Bowen. I got to tell you, Les, you got the best of all worlds now. You don't have to go down and sweat and hang with John McMullen and be with all these other Eagle beat people, and you get to just jump on with us and or do your podcast, talk about the Birds, and we know full well you know what it's like. You did it for years. First day of practice, what was it like for you? Were you like the players in that you got to get back into a routine, you just got to get going, and you got to jump start, or was it like, all right, I got to go out and sweat? What am I going to wear? We're more worried about what you're going to wear to stay as comfortable as possible. What was it like day one for you all those years you were out covering the Birds when the season got underway?
Well, my main thought today is how much it's changed. You know, they're off. They're having a walkthrough today, but there's no access. So the reporters aren't even going to go down there. You know, when Andy Reid was running camps at Lehigh, you were doing 2 a day, and most of us stayed in a hotel there in Bethlehem because the day was so long every day, you know, that you couldn't really go. I live in South Jersey, so it was really hard to get back up there in the mornings. And it was just an incredible grind the first week or so, especially. And it's not really like that anymore. It's and in some not so good ways, I think. There was just so much more access to players.
Yeah. And those college campus days, Les, man, you see guys walking around, you have conversations.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
you could get anybody you wanted by hanging out at the back of the locker room there between sessions. Now that I guess they gave you some players yesterday in the auditorium, and then there were some guys interviewed on the field. But
the tent, they do it in the tent in training camp. But they don't even let us grab people going off the field. So you sort of have to wait until they open the locker room, which is, you know, the week before the regular season.
Right.
You know, the disappointing part is everybody gets the same guys, the same quotes.
Yes.
Yes. Which is disappointing for us, but for fans who don't realize that's where you get, you know, and there's so many this time of year, you know, Les, to me, I mean, no disrespect to Jason Kelsey, Brandon Graham, because those guys are phenomenal. But how many times have we talked to Jason and Brandon? I want to talk to guys we don't get to talk about and find interesting stories. Maybe it's an undrafted kid, maybe it's one of these 1-year reclamation projects. Those to me are the interesting stories.
The tight end Jackson, who showed up yesterday.
Yeah, he had a great day. Yeah,
things like that. That's what's interesting about camp. That's exactly right. Yes.
And a lot of that has gone away. It's disappointing, and I wish more fans realized it and kind of pushed back. I don't know how you can push back though, because once COVID happened, it gave the NFL, not just the Eagles, it gave the NFL an opportunity to push people further back. And then you have all these, everybody, Hard Knocks. Jody's excited. The New York Jets, a lot of Hard Knocks going on, but everybody's got sort of their mini Hard Knocks on their own social media, their websites, but it's very obviously, I call it state-run media. That's what it is,
Right.
and you only accentuate the positive. And guess what? Not everything's positive.
That's right. Well, even with Hard Knocks, what you're seeing now, I thought it was really funny when they announced last week that the Jets were going to do it very differently. They weren't going to show people getting cut and stuff like that. And people were like puzzling over this, that's not the formula for Hard Knocks. Well, the NFL doesn't care. The Hard Knocks to begin with runs totally counter to every trend in the NFL over the last 15 years in terms of media access. Letting people inside like that, even if you have veto power over some of the stuff that's shown, just isn't the way that they want to do things. And, I'm not surprised that it's going to be a very, in recent years, it has been a very different kind of experience watching that than it was in the early Wild and Woolly years when Rex Ryan or somebody would, you just don't have that in the league anymore. And it's a shame. But yeah, to get Jody's original question, I don't miss the standing out there. It really, the older you get, and I'm in decent shape, I can still trudge 3 miles really slow, but it's standing out there in the sun just saps your legs. It's, you cover up as much as you can because, you don't want to get skin cancer.
Yeah.
But it's a real grind. You don't get to sit down.
You start thinking about fashion less and less. I brought up my goofy bucket hat last year.
Bucket hat is a good idea. Yes.
And Jeff Stoutland saw me the one day, and he's telling me the story. Interesting story. He had to have his ears clipped because as a football coach, he's out in the sun so much. You got to be careful. You got to.
Well, of course, Jim Johnson, the late defensive coordinator, died of melanoma. It's really, it's something you think about. You spend, everybody smells like sunscreen. It's a very odd. Sit down and work and write after.
Hours you feel like you need a shower before you sit down and write.
Yes, exactly.
Well, the Eagles showered up, I'm sure, after their 58 minutes yesterday. And they're going to go through a walkthrough today, and we'll see if they take some of the sloppiness out that was in yesterday's practice. But again, just day number one. That's why the first question I asked you on today, did you learn more from the 58 minutes on field or the time spent listening to either Nick Sirianni and or Howie Roseman? Howie didn't really give you a heck of a lot, but Nick did say running back by committee in camp. Don't try and read the tea leaves much. Who got the first snap of the day? Who got the first handoff today? They're all going to get a chance. They all did get a chance yesterday. I agree with John in that they hope to have someone separate and be the number one, but they're not going to do that until someone has established that. How do you think it's going to shake out? Like, we can just take our guesses as per what they've done elsewhere. Swift and Penny coming in from outside. Gainwell here 2 years. Boston and Scott here several years. When all is said and done and we get to week number one against the Patriots, will there be someone who's separated as number one? Who do you think that's going to be?
I think it pretty much has to be DeAndre Swift for a couple reasons. One is he's the guy with the resume. He's probably the guy who's done the most of this group. Two, Rashad Penny might be more talented, probably is more talented, but given Rashad Penny's injury history, there's no way they're going to try to, he's going to have to be like a a seasoning added to the mix. They're not going to try to ride him and get him hurt right off the bat. You could see them ride him in the playoffs or something like they did with Kenny Gainwell last year if they get that far with him healthy. But I just don't see Rashad Penny being the guy they're going to strap the load onto right out of the box, regardless of how well he does in the preseason. And I don't think there's any, I think those are the two main guys. Gainwell, I'm really interested in how they handle Gainwell because he did have that strong taste of success in the playoffs. And when you guys talked to him, John, back in June, he was like, "Yeah, I'm expecting a lot more this year," And they did lose Miles Sanders, but the guys they brought in, I don't know that Kenny's looking at that much more. He's going to have to really, as Jody said, earn whatever he gets here. And Swift is a good receiver out of the backfield, which is one of the things that Gainwell kind of brings you. And it'll be real interesting. I expect it to be Swift, but I think they will use it. Probably won't be like last year when Miles Sanders clearly, Miles Sanders had a career year and they really de-emphasized the other guys pretty much in favor of Miles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'll see anything like that this year.
Yeah, I'm in the camp where I think they hope they find a lead back. I don't think they want to do running back by committee, and if they do, that's probably because they can't find a lead back, which I don't think is a good sign necessarily.
Right.
Penny, I think is interesting because I look at it the opposite way, Les. I'm like, I know the injury history, but I can't control injuries.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be here next year. Why don't you DeMarco Murray him? It's the untoward aspect of the NFL. But I mean, we know what the Eagles believe at the position. So my take is if he plays well, he's going to earn too much money. They're not going to want him. And if he plays poorly, obviously they're not going to want him.
Yeah.
But, just give him the football until he can't go anymore. That's kind of, it's the ugly aspect of football, but that's been the reality of that particular position.
Yeah, I'd just kind of like to have him around at the end of the season if that's at all possible. We don't know what it is, but, I think those are both really good backs, and I think they're in great shape at the running back room. It's a deeper room than they had last season. I don't think it will detract too much from the fact that this offense is still about Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. But I do like the running back room.
Mark my words, at least once this year, Rashad Penny will sit without being injured. He will not be active for a game.
Oh, okay.
Maintenance, that they will keep him less.
Greg Popovich.
They
do that during the week, Jody. That's what they do during the week. Nobody practices during the week.
Yeah.
Right. I am predicting that it will happen on a Sunday this year, not during the week. When Eagles play a Sunday game, because they could be playing Thursday or Monday, but you get my drift. Yeah. A Sunday game, there will be health maintenance for Rashad Penny. He will not even be active. So the coaching staff is not tempted to put him into the game. I'm kind of going with you, Les. Like to have him at the end of the season. I think they will try and protect him for a long playoff run, and he'll get some maintenance Sundays, not maintenance practices, some maintenance Sundays for Rashad Penny. And we'll see if it happens. I don't remember anybody ever doing it before, but the Eagles like to be cutting edge, and I think they will do that with him this year. All right, Les, another day, another practice, another day of a tight end who might be as physically gifted as any tight end they have, Mr. Jackson, making a couple plays in practice. When is he going to go? Should they be thinking maintenance for him to just try and protect him? Because every time he makes a play in practice, the next day he gets hurt. Oh, he's back on the IR again. I want to see this kid succeed, but I just don't know if that's possible because it always seems something's going wrong with him physically.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is with Tyree Jackson, but he's a former quarterback. He's very athletically skilled. What does he know about playing tight end at this point? Has he been out there on the field enough to really absorb the finer points? Has he been able to do that while being sidelined? I don't know, but he's certainly it's an interesting room, the tight end room. You got Dallas Goedert, and then you have several guys who've shown this or that. Grant Calcaterra, Dan Arnold, who's played in the league with Jacksonville. On my podcast, I had Clay Harbor last week as a guest, who was a very interesting guest, by the way.
We've had Clay. Clay's awesome.
I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent. This is a guy that his career-ending injury suffered on The Bachelorette.
On the back,
we talked about Riley Cooper and the whole business. You remember that 10 years ago?
Oh yeah.
But the reason I brought up Clay was Dan Arnold. Clay follows the Jaguars because he played there for several years after he left the Eagles. And he really likes Dan Arnold. He thinks Dan Arnold will be an asset to that group and will make the team and so forth. I don't know. I don't know Dan Arnold very well, but that's.
I'll tell you what, he showed up in OTAs last. He made. Now yesterday, I was expecting the Dan Arnold play. I didn't get it because he is a great receiver. Colin Thompson, who's on our show, local kid, just signed with Minnesota, tight end, speaks really highly of Dan Arnold. He's a good player. Doesn't block much, but he's more of a receiver.
Yeah.
It's the microcosm of Tyree Jackson. He's so gifted athletically. Mm-hmm. So, Les, before they get into team drills, quarterbacks throw to receivers. Jason Michaels, the tight ends coach, was all over Tyree Jackson on one route because he didn't run it the right way, and he was giving him the business. And then he gets into teamwork, and he's just making plays because he's more athletically gifted than he's playing with the second, third team, obviously, right. So it's not the starters, but it's sort of one of those things. Can you tap into it? Can you get him to do the other stuff? All the technique and then the injuries.
Yeah.
But, you've seen it. The play got hurt on. I believe you were there that day. Remember at the back of the end zone where he just landed flat on his back, but he made an unbelievable catch.
Yeah. And this is what, as I was saying, this is what training camp is all about. This is what, in week 8, it might not matter at all, but this is what you look for in training camp.
Yeah.
Stuff like this. And it's always interesting to follow it.
Yeah.
I call it the Tyree tease. He does this in camp and everyone gets excited because they get a video of him making an unbelievable play. Yeah, but then he gets hurt. So we'll see if this year they can avoid the injured part of it. Other guy who has been good in the off season this year, which includes the couple of OTA practices they had yesterday, Christian Ellis with another interception. And I want to just go, stop. It's practice. But that's all they have to judge on at a couple of positions here. And they're not going to be doing 28 practices before the season starts. Right. So this very short period of time is very important when it comes to evaluating positions that are up for grabs. And Christian Ellis continues to make plays.
And by the way, let me add, hey, nobody else is making plays at linebacker. So it might just be practice, but
Yeah, Christian Ellis is such an interesting story. We never really got the whole, last year, when they finally brought him up from the practice squad, suddenly he had an impact on special teams, which made me wonder what took them so long. Because that's one of my favorite bugaboos about last year's team was the many and varied ways that the special teams let them down over the course of the season and nearly cost them games and changed the course of games and eventually bit them in the butt in the Super Bowl.
Who would have predicted that, Les?
Yeah. Christian Ellis made a difference there. And now he looks at a situation at linebacker where there's not another position on the team that's as wide open as that to me. Yes, they have Nicobe Dean, but the veteran that they gave, the only veteran they brought in is like, they can cut him tomorrow. I mean, he's making nothing,
literally, by the way, literally zero guaranteed money.
Yes.
Like every other, they signed a bunch of these 1-year guys.
Yeah.
Like nobody talks about Justin Evans. He got some $500,000 or whatever. Nicholas Morrow was the only one who got no guaranteed money whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've got, TJ Edwards and Kazir White both left. And they weren't deep there last year. They didn't have a lot of guys they wanted to put on the field. So I just think that's a huge opportunity for Christian Ellis, undrafted guy though he is, and without resume that from last year as a linebacker though he is. I think there's no other position on the field where you can carve out a chunk for yourself as an unknown guy like that position, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm at the point where let's just see the guy with the first team, put him, and he got some first team reps to their credit because the Eagles saw what he was able to do in the spring and said, all right, let's give him some, mixed him in with Nicobe, and he made a play again. Why is it hurt? I think what you have in Nick Morrow. He's, solid NFL player, but I think the upside is limited. So why not, see what this kid can do?
Yeah,
and
if this guy can play,
that really helps if he can,
right?
If he can play, because, and we'll go to Nicobe here. Boy, I think, I get it. He was a great college player. He had the great reputation. But he played 34 snaps. Jody and I talk about that a lot. The Eagles should have done a better job of mixing him in. And I agree with that.
To do stuff like that while you're chasing.
Yeah, it is. I see both sides.
But yeah, you're right. There were a couple guys like that last year. Even Jordan Davis. I think they down the stretch they sort of.
Yeah, they were down the stretch. They just said, you know what? I trust the veterans. I'm going to play the veterans, and I think they did a disservice to the younger players. Could have mixed them in a little bit better.
I agree,
but it's a tough balancing act. I get it, but here we are, and they put so much on Nicobe's plate. I think there's going to be some hiccups there, Les. I really do.
Me too. And I, as great as he was in college. You stood next to the guy. Yeah. He's as small a linebacker as I've been around in a long time. He's, Alex Singleton is a little taller than he is, I think. And Alex wasn't a great physical specimen. I know you don't have to be Jeremiah Schroeder anymore to play linebacker in the NFL, but I worry about injury, with Nicobe. I just think that is really no matter how dynamic he is and how talented he is, that's a really small, and that's a safety size guy, really.
Yeah. By the way, can I jump in and say
no, hold on, let me get in here for a second. If he's too small to play, John continues to reference this, you're referencing it now.
John Clark did it as well, because Les, people get mad at me because I say he's really small. They get mad at me. So I just want to point out, John Clark said it. Les Bowen said it. They both been next to him. Don't believe me. Believe Les. I'm not lying to you.
His size is his size. Okay. If you and others think that he's too small, why didn't they address linebacker during this offseason? Why didn't they go out and get someone to put the dot on if they didn't think Kaiser White was worth the money he got and TJ Edwards wasn't worth the money he's got? Why are they just turning the keys to the castle over to a safety who's playing middle linebacker?
Well, they believe in him. They drafted him high.
So it's you guys who don't believe in him because he's too small.
Well, I
want to get the line of thinking between the Eagles and John McMullen, John Clark, and Les Bowen as to is Nicobe Dean at this safety-like size going to be able to play linebacker in the NFL?
I just say I have questions. They obviously don't. They saw him a lot more than I did in college. He did play against, playing at Georgia, you do play against NFL-sized guys a lot. So, they're not as worried about it, but it's something in the back of your mind until he goes out and really, dominates a game or something. It's something that he has to prove. I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not saying there's no way this guy's ever going to be any good. But I'm just saying this is a niggling concern to me as we go forward here. And the fact that he didn't get on the field last year for any significant action at all, it's all remains to be seen. I think even though I'm kind of countering there's a lot of hype the other way, Jody, that, Nicobe Dean, they've got Nicobe Dean. Well, we'll see, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Les is on the same page as me. We're not saying he can't play. We're saying there's some questions, and I'm surprised, and I've said it pretty consistently on the show. I think the Eagles have gone overboard. I think for the most part, they're correct in devaluing the linebacker position. I think they've taken it too far.
And they've done that in the past. They've done that. That year that Doug Peterson had the horrible team, his last season, they blew that. They had no linebackers. That was one of the big reasons.
Like what I would have done is I would have brought TJ back and had Nicobe Dean play weak side next to TJ, and I think you're fine. I think I have no problems with that. Now he's got to be the middle linebacker. And again, the Eagles played 20 games last season. They're hoping to play 20 games again this season. TJ Edwards played all 20 games. Kaiser White played all 20 games. We talk about health, and you can't legislate injuries, and the game has changed, right? I mean, smaller players play,
right? But
running back and linebacker, the two devalued position, those guys take a beating.
Yes.
They take a beating. Unless has seen TJ Edwards. TJ remade his body. TJ is jacked.
Yes.
TJ is prepared to play 20 games. He might tear his I hope he doesn't. Good guy. He might get injured, soft tissue injury. But he has done everything possible to make sure that he can handle the wear and tear of being an NFL middle linebacker. I think it's fair to point out that Nicobe is very undersized to be an NFL middle linebacker.
Yes.
Maybe it's not a problem at all. Maybe, but I think it's fair to point it out.
For now, I just wanted to see what you guys thought. You've got concerns. You're not saying you don't think he can do it.
I think he's a very good player.
You're just saying concerns because he played so little and because he's how many pounds less would you say last year's
it's really hard to say because they list the listed weights for these guys.
That's why I'm asking, and unless you're not down there every day like John.
But I'm going to say,
what would you say the weight difference is, John, between Edwards and Nicobe Dean?
At least 20.
Yeah.
TJ's legit 240, 241. I'd say Nicobe, if he gets to 220, the Eagles list Nicobe. This is part of the problem. The Eagles list him at 231, and people say, well, that's not that much smaller. And as Les points out, don't take those numbers with a grain of salt.
Those are rounded up and rounded down for the team's narrative as they want to tell it.
The other position, of course, we talked about is right guard. And so
same thing.
Spring that they listed Isaac Suomalo and Cam Jurgens at virtually the same size.
Yes, 305 to like 302. And those two guys are not similar at all.
No.
So
at least 20 pounds difference there. Yeah.
And I would say, as I said, TJ's I think Nicobe struggles. I think Nicobe's probably 220 right now. Mm-hmm. And then he loses weight he loses weight. Yeah, as the season goes on. So probably ends up playing at 215. TJ's legit 240.
I agree.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. With the practice number one under their belts and Friday's practice being scheduled to take place on a day that it could get into the upper 90s. Now, it won't be that at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's 3 o'clock.
Well, they'll probably be inside, I would guess, where they have air conditioning.
You think they're going to go inside second practice of the year?
I think they're going to move it up, Les. They'll move it up an hour. That's what they did last year.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
That's my guess.
But no, they're not going to be out there in 100 and whatever the feels like temperature is. Andy would in the old days, but that was the CBA. It's not just Nick Sirianni, different ideas. The CBA is real different now, but yeah, and in Andy Reid day, we'd all be out there.
Oh yeah, can't sit down. Hey, Les, I would say my worst moment covering the NFL was I was on the field the day Corey Stringer ultimately passed away. And that was literally the demarcation line. Like before that, people would Mike Tyson was a phenomenal guy, tough guy though, old school. Back then they used to make fun of players for not drinking, for drinking water. Oh, like you're soft. You're soft. How goofy that was when you think about it in hindsight. That literally changed the game. But I remember, people don't believe this. We as writers, when I was covering Minnesota, we were not allowed to bring water onto the field pre Corey Stringer. That's how goopy it was back then.
There's a famous story from Lehigh of I won't say the reporter's name because I don't have her permission to tell this, but a reporter was there. She was pregnant, very pregnant. And one of the Andy's rules was you can't, go down to a knee or sit down. Yeah. So she was like, it was really hot and she was kind of dizzy and she kind of went down to one knee and they sent the security guy over to, tell her, you got to stand up,
Yeah.
I've never heard that story before.
Yeah.
Shame
Andy's even Doug. Later, one day at practice with Doug, it was raining really hard, and we went under that. There's like one little section of the NovaCare complex with, where you can go under and get out of the rain a little bit. And Doug sent over, I don't think one of the PR guys, and said, "Hey, get those guys out of there." And he
remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is.
It is.
Les Bowen, give us the details on when the podcast posts every single week.
Well, I do it from 3 to 4 on Thursday, so it will be today actually, and then it will post whenever they get around to, whenever the producers and powers that be get around to throwing it up there. But it is on most of the streaming platforms, I believe. It's
who you got? Anybody you can announce?
I do have Zach Berman today.
Oh, Zach,
very nice.
I've been trying to get like offbeat guests, like Clay Harbor last week. Like Brandon Brooks, to talk about Wall Street and stuff during the weeks when we were kind of nothing was going on. But now that we've started camp, and as we referenced, I wasn't out there yesterday, so I want to get Zach is a former colleague with the Daily News and the Inquirer, and he works for the Athletic now, and he's very assiduous in his
he is
noting of everything. So I want to get the full rundown from him and discuss some of the same things that we discussed today. Maybe I'll just loop in a clip of this.
Feel free. Yeah, you share with us. We share with you.
Yeah, help get the hour going there, But I'm enjoying doing it, and it's going pretty well so far. And I'll have to have one of you guys on soon. I've got a lot of weeks to fill. So
got a lot of John. We're always there for you, Les.
John actually works for a living. He goes to practice and stuff like that. So I will absolutely volunteer to jump in with you anytime that you need, Les, because you've been very good jumping in with us. We appreciate you doing it today. Bowen on the Birds podcast records today, drops later. Check it out when you get the chance where you get your better podcast. Les, great stuff. Thanks, bud.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you, guys.
That's Les Bowen here with us on Birds 365. All right, Jody Mac coming back. A couple more things I want to get into from yesterday's 58-minute practice. They're getting ready for the season. These are the rules. This is what they play by. They're only going to do so much.
By the way, I saw some people say it was over an hour. The practice was 58 minutes. I got that from Dom DeSandro. So, Dom, I get the exact level of practice from Dom every day. If I see him, when I see him, it's hard not to see him. So it's a green practice, what the Eagles call a green practice. It's scheduled for 58 minutes. So that's why I use the term so assiduously, as Les would say. I'll throw that out there. So that's what, green practice is 58 minutes.
What are the other colors and time limits? Since there is I did not know there was a limit, a number, a hard number.
Well, they schedule these things down to the minute. There's a yellow practice, there's walkthrough. I wish I should remember. I just go to Dom every day because I want to know how long I'm going to be out there. It doesn't matter as much as it used to. But he's got the schedule. So
if they log 52 minutes, is that different? If they do 24, is that indigo? I'm just wondering how much this time and color chart matches up.
You know what? I haven't paid as much attention as I should to that. So
you need to be more assiduous, John.
I know. I need to be more assiduous. But there's 3 different, and I can't remember offhand, but I'll get to them all during camp.
For a future Birds 365 episode, Johnny Mac breaks down the color scheme and the number of minutes that the Eagles will be practicing.
Green, baby. Green
yesterday at night at 58 minutes. All right, we've got, let's see, we got more than 50. We got 64 minutes left to go here today. A lot yet to talk about, including when we get Chris Franklin up in hour number 2, what his hat wear will be for the next couple of weeks going down to Eagles practice. He's McMullen. I'm McDonald. We are Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got Johnny Mac and Jody Mac with you for hour number 2 here on Birds 365 after the Birds put in their first team workout of the year. Call to practice. I guess you got to call to practice because they did do some 11-on-11 stuff. They didn't do a full 100 yards of the field. They did red zone stuff only. But if you're going 11 on 11, I guess you're allowed to call it practice. And it was a green practice for 58 minutes. More color breakdown to come as the week goes on. You and I didn't get a chance to talk about this yesterday because you were down there. What team, first team, second team, third team, fourth team, did Deon Cain get any snaps yesterday, Johnny Mac? The Eagles re-signed Deon Cain, was in camp last year. He had one really good preseason game that I actually thought, he could sneak on and make this roster. He didn't. He ended up playing in the USFL this year, right? It was not XFL. He was USFL.
USFL championship game MVP, Deon Cain.
And he gets an invite to a practice, to a tryout, and boom, he got signed by the Eagles yesterday. Again, a long shot to make the team, but a guy who at least has some working knowledge of the Eagles system and was here last year in camp. I know he just showed up. He wasn't part of the OTAs previously this season. Mr. Cain look okay? Make any plays yesterday when you were watching?
Yeah, he didn't make one play. He was with the third team, understandably so. I mean, he just got back. He was here on the practice squad for part of 21 and 22. So he's a little bit advanced from that perspective. The Eagles worked out 3 receivers. They had a bunch of Tuesday tryouts before camp. Deon was one of them, a former first-round pick. N'Keal Harry was one, and Javonta Payton's the guy we talked about. So they worked out 3 receivers, and they defaulted to the guy they know. Who knows? Maybe all the playing time in the USFL helps them. I always go back to the days of the World League. I always point out, that was important for a bunch of guys, high-profile guys, Kurt Warner, Brad Johnson, Jake Delhomme. You can't duplicate live reps, even though it's a lesser, obviously, product. You can't duplicate that. So who knows? They do need help on the depth chart at wide receiver beyond AJ and Devontae. It's not great. So, he's physically gifted. He's a big guy. Hopefully they got to find somebody. And it's probably just going to be Quez and Alameda and Britton Covey, because Britton's the punt returner and nobody's taking that job from Britton Covey. I got news for you. As strange as it sounds, Britton Covey is a lock for me for this team. Then they don't have a lot. And Deon should be in the conversation with everybody else. And I think he will be.
I know I've asked you this before, and I apologize for not remembering because it has been changing over the last couple of years, but I'm assuming it's the exact same as it was last year. How many guys on the practice squad, and what are 16. The limitations? I know we're in the weeds here when we're talking about the practice squad, but that's what camp is for, is to figure this stuff out. How many spots do you have there, and how deep can you go at any one individual position?
16. You can do it any way you want. I mean, There's 16 guys, and they'll keep a couple receivers on the practice squad because that's a position where you're liable to get a soft tissue injury or something like that might keep a player out a week or two. So it's a position you need depth at, and thoroughbred position, so to speak, and they'll keep corners and they'll keep receivers. That it doesn't hurt because, it may be they have some undrafted kid, Joseph Nada, Jaden Hazelwood, Tyree Cleveland's here, Devin Allen's still here. We started on the non-football injury list because he got hurt running track, of course. But yeah, they need some help at the bottom of the depth chart when it comes to receiver. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Deon Cain ends up on the practice squad again. Surprise me if he ends up on the 53, but not the practice squad.
You mentioned that Devin Allen was on the active non-football injury because he got hurt running track, which is different than the PUP list. Eagles had no players on the PUP list to start the season.
A little bit of a surprise. I thought Derek Barnett might start. Avonte Maddox, they're both coming off surgeries. Avonte didn't do anything in the spring, but he was hanging around watching. That's always a good sign. Nobody started on the PUP. PUP list is not a big deal. People get panicked over that. You can, as long as you're on the PUP list at the start of camp, you can come off it the next day.
Right.
A lot of guys
being on it's not that big a deal. It may sound like a big deal, but it's not, because you can be reinstated anytime you want. But once camp opens, if then you get put on the PUP list, now there are some restrictions. So that's why it came as a surprise to me that the Eagles, you would think out of just maybe precaution, they would have at least one or two guys there, and they had none. That's tremendous health, which again points to don't be second guess the way the Eagles do their business, because they can just hang their hat on. Look, we're as healthy as there is a team in the National Football League.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's tough to and that Hassan Reddick didn't practice because he had some groin pain, but he's supposed to be back over the weekend or early next week. They're also going to be always cautious. So if somebody has like a tweaked groin or something like Hassan, they're not practicing. I mean, and that's how they handle things. And you're right, Jody. It's tough to criticize them at this point. It is tough. No need to play through it for a player of that stature. So, shut him down. Make sure he's ready.
And at this stage of the season, which is one practice in, the fact that they're going to keep all 90 guys around all the way until the very last cut, they're not even cutting in stages. You just say, guess what? You're not practicing today. That's simple. It's not like you have to worry about fielding a team and getting everybody around. You got more guys than you know what to do with anyway at this stage, so why would you even push it?
It's funny, though. You know who they got to hold back with wild horses to give a maintenance day? Brandon Graham. He doesn't want any maintenance days. There are certain guys that they're like, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. Now, last year they did. They kind of held him back. Probably didn't like it. And we'll see how it shakes out this year. But I remember when they started this maintenance day thing, and Brandon never took one, man. Never took one. But then he tore his Achilles and obviously was able to make it back and is more accepting of it. There is that old school mentality, but it's slowly leaving. I will say that.
And then you have a guy like Jason Kelsey who
he loves it.
Readily accepts maintenance days, that his body is not getting beaten up, and that he's gone on record as saying if maintenance days hadn't become a staple with the Eagles, he don't know if he'd still be playing.
Yeah,
but that is
probably
a reason
wouldn't be.
why.
Yeah,
he's still out there. But that was interesting yesterday. Juergens at right tackle to start, which most of us assume was going to be the case because he was here last year. Steen is a rookie, but not moved back over to center for the second team center reps. They're not going to ask him. They're not going to run him into the ground first day of practice. Instead, taught as your second team center. When Jason gets to maintenance day, you think it's going to be Juergens back with the starters and Steen in at right guard with the starters just to give Steen a chance to play with the ones? Or you think if Juergens supposedly played well, I should do it this way. From the little you could see in day one of practice, how did Juergens look? I saw quotes from both Lane and Kelsey afterwards saying they thought he looked great. How did he look to you?
He looked fine. I didn't see anything that stood out from a good or bad standpoint, and that's kind of what you want. You don't want when you notice an offensive lineman, especially in situations where the pads aren't on, it's usually for bad reasons more than good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eagles struggled with the pass rush as a whole, which is good news for the defense because that defensive line is going to have to carry this defense. But and it's very deep and it's very talented. So there's a good opportunity it can carry this defense. But from the offensive line perspective, it's interesting to me because the long-term plan is Cam Jurgens is going to be the center and Tyler Steen is going to be the right guard. That's the long-term plan for obviously when Jason Kelsey finally calls it a career. And who knows? We keep saying this is going to be it, and he might play for 3 more years. I don't know. But ultimately, they want Steen to play right guard. So if he can do it, you might as well start it right away. But, I mean, I think people forget he's changing positions. You know, they always talk about Cam's changing positions. He's changing. He never played guard in college. He was always a tackle. It's different. The people are on you quicker. The tackles are usually stronger. So there's sort of a learning curve for him as well. And I think they have that built in. Cam is going to be the center on maintenance days, and Tyler will get the first team reps at right guard. So from their standpoint, it's like it's the best of both worlds. And they have the utmost like they're not worried about Cam Jurgens playing center. They know he can play center. So they're not worried about that part of it. And they're not concerned about him losing technique or anything of that nature by toggling back and forth. And as long as you're confident in that, you have a built-in way of evaluating Tyler Steen and how quickly he can get up to speed.
Noah Son Reddick yesterday, as you mentioned, just a precaution, give him an extra day or two before he actually starts his season. Again, you don't have to rush a guy who is a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Take your time there, Hassan. But that meant a little bit more Nolan Smith on the outside. Derek Barnett was practicing, and you said the defensive line got the better of the offensive line. How did the outside DN guys look for you yesterday?
Well, Nolan looked great, but against second, third team players, he just destroyed.
Who were the first team DNs? Josh Sweat and who?
Brandon Graham. In the 50 front, it was Brandon, Josh, Jordan, Fletcher, and Milton Williams.
Yeah, good for Milton.
But I wouldn't. Yeah, Milton. I love Milton personally. Great guy, good player. Jalen Carter is going to be the starter there. It's just a matter of getting him to where he needs to be. And then in the 40.
Let me interrupt here, and sorry for interrupting you, but if Milton Williams, like you said, it's going to take time for Jalen Carter to get up to speed. He's going to get his reps, but will he be the starting rep? At what point does he get the most defensive tackle reps? Could happen by the end of the season. If Milton Williams is more productive than Fletcher Cox, will Carter and Milton potentially be the two guys who are on the field most at the defensive tackle?
Yeah, that's possible. That's more possible than I mean, they're getting Fletcher to the point like Brandon embraces his role now.
Yeah, less is more, right?
Yeah, Brandon. But I mean, Brandon is a unique guy, man. He really is. I mean, he was talking to us yesterday. All he was talking about was trying to get the young players better and how good they are. And him and Slay, and I add Slay into that category as well. And he doesn't have that reputation. He should. From being around the NFL, listening to there are certain guys who embrace helping the younger players and certain guys that want no part of it because, it's weird. Yeah. You're trying to help the guy here to replace your job. It's weird, but certain guys embrace it. Brandon embraces it. Slay embraces it. And I'm not saying Fletcher doesn't. Just I rarely see it to the degree of those two guys. But I think they're getting Fletcher to that point where, back in the day, the reason I bring this up, like Fletcher wanted to play, always wanted to play.
Every snap.
Jim Schwartz, had to basically, time to the bench. And he would get pissed if he didn't have as many snaps as he thought he should. And he wanted to win the game. I mean, he's like, we're better when I'm on the field. Generally was right. But now as an aging player, and they have so much depth. And I also bring it up for this point, Jody. The most interesting thing to me was Jordan Davis got a lot of reps in 40 fronts. I did not expect to see that. So he got a lot of reps in 4-man fronts. So it seems to me it might be just and Fletcher raved about his conditioning. He knew he had to ramp up his conditioning. They may be trying to get him on the field too in those 40 fronts. And if they're trying to do that, then you really got they're really gifted on the defensive line.
Right. They got a lot of depth there.
Yeah. It's absurd. I remember it was Bucky Brooks who said number one position group in the entire league.
Right.
The entire league. Any position. I'm starting to agree with him because they're so deep. We're talking about Milt Williams would play on every team in this league. I don't know how many reps he can get on this team because Fletcher's still a good player. Carter, for people who haven't gotten it, they're going to get it soon enough. He is insanely gifted. Jordan Davis people forget how gifted he is. Even Kentavious Street, that's an NFL player. Marlon Tuipulotu, that's an NFL player. They're not stars, but they belong on a 53-man roster. They're incredibly deep on the defensive line.
Yeah, if the Eagles stay healthy at defensive tackle, I don't see how Kentavious Street makes his team.
And he got a lot of reps yesterday, Kentavious Street. He was on the second team. A lot of reps. But yes, they all can't make it. They all can't make it. And that's the group that has to carry this defense. And I think they could. It's that good.
All right. If you noticed, and again, you're trying to watch everybody and they only run so many plays. We know he was out there because we're both a little surprised that he was. But Derek Barnett got his snaps at defensive end. There's debate as to how that's going to shake out by the time we get to the end of camp. Can they trade him?
Derek in team drills. Did somebody say that?
He didn't do any?
No, he was out there.
7-on-7?
No, he was limited. 7-on-7, they're not out there. So he was doing individual work and that kind of stuff.
So he wasn't in on any
not team stuff. He's not. Abante was in 7-on-7s, for instance, but he was limited. He was not in team stuff. Derek didn't get any reps in teamwork because he's still working his way back. But that was a positive coming back from the ACL that he didn't start on the PUP list. But yeah, he's still got some time to go before he's going to be in teamwork.
But do you even worry about or try and make sure that something gets on? I know that practice is practice, but he's coming off the major injury. His career numbers, back of his football card is what it is. If you think you can trade Derek Barnett, do you need to showcase Derek Barnett at all?
Well, I think you got to showcase him to show he's healthy at some point, that he's completely back from that standpoint, just from the health standpoint. And they will, because, he's not, he's clearly number 5 now, behind, when Reddick wasn't out there. But when Reddick is healthy, it's Reddick, Sweat, Graham, Nolan Smith, and he's number 5. And that means, you're going to play in some preseason games, and they just got to showcase that he's healthy, and they'll be able to get something for him. in my opinion. And we'll see how it shakes out.
But you would still have him ahead of Janarius Robinson.
Yeah, I would. Boy, he's I was talking to Brandon about him yesterday. He looks it. If you were going to do a movie and wanted to cast an edge
the
rusher,
part, huh?
Yeah, man. He is. Josh does too. I mean, but Josh is already proven. Like, those are what edge rushers are supposed to look like. Big, long, powerful, speedy. And he swatted the ball once, like J.J. Watt in his prime. Looked like a praying mantis out there. I don't know if he can play, but he looks like he can play. But you know the old saying, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane. I'm not saying he plays like Jane.
Right. You don't want to use that with him, do you?
Now, well, Minnesota didn't exactly have a great defensive line, which is weird. They have a history of that franchise of having a great defensive line. But they changed, right? They went away. Typically, the Vikings were always the Jim Schwartz. And you had, all the way back to the days of Alan Page and Carl Eller. And, then I had Keith Millard and Chris Dolman, John Rand, Hall of Famers, Jared Allen. And even now with Daniil Hunter, really great players. That was not the case last year. And he got cut from that team. So I don't know if he can play.
All right. Or it could be the Minnesota Vikings made a mistake. We'll find out. I see that Chris Franklin from NJ.com is in the waiting room. He will join us next. You got McMullen, McDonald, Mac here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh. EAGLES. Eagles.
With Johnny Mac, I'm Jody Mac. Appreciate you being here on Birds 365. And we've got our guy, Chris Franklin, joining us from the screened-in backyard. Always fun to catch up with Chris. Now, we know you got birds because we've heard them in the background. You got a dog, too?
No dog. I mean, I may have the dog mentality that's talked about all the time.
There you go.
He's post-game Chris, so he's got that dog mentality. So it's an overreaction Thursday, Chris, because it's day one of camp. It was interesting. I wish Nick Sirianni, I mentioned this earlier in the show, I wish he talked after practice, but, he's got it, Mr. Football, he's got to get in there and watch the film immediately. Because I thought, at the end when he had the bullhorn, he's screaming at everybody. I thought that was, maybe he was pissed about the pre-snap penalties. But I think part was, he made a calculated attempt to say, hey, we're not the NFC champions anymore. This is, you start doing this crap, we're going to lose to some bad teams. Did you take it like that, or you just think he was peeved in the minute?
I think he was a little upset with the after that whole thing, like 3-4 straight plays of everybody jumped for like either offsides or false start. Yeah, I definitely think that was part of it. And I also think he wanted to make them feel like you got to be prepared for anything else. Because remember that one time he kind of laid into the defense a little bit for not being ready. Like I think it's the second team defense, whatever, not being ready and being out on the field. He was in a mid season form on that one. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying to do that. You got everybody's predicting them to finish 1 or 2 in the conference, and you can't have that complacency going in there because guys start, especially the younger guys, veterans, not so much worried about, but the young guys here, we're going to be good at it. Now you got to shake it up and make sure they're on their toes. So I wouldn't be too shocked in there. I think he's just, as the day wore on, it got hot. I think he started getting a little perturbed about those mental mistakes.
I don't think we've ever broached this with you, Chris. I'm interested to see your answer. John and I have certainly talked about it plenty. You two were there. I was not. I would speculate that Sirianni getting as perturbed on the bullhorn, screaming and yelling as much as he did was more about he really would rather practice more. He'd rather be old school. He knows that the CBA took his ability to run a decent practice away. And then the Eagles as an organization would more lean on the side of less is more. I think Sirianni would rather see these guys actually put more work in. And yeah, when it doesn't go well, he's like, if we had 20 more minutes, I could get this thing fixed. Let me scream at him. Maybe that's how we can get it fixed. That's just a guess on my part. Do you think Sirianni is just 100% in lockstep with everything the league is doing, the Eagles are doing, or do you think he'd actually rather see him doing more work?
I think he's in lockstep with what the signs. I mean, like you see when he and Howie Roseman seem to be like a 1 and 2, like buddy when it comes to a lot of stuff. Like when it comes to the outlook of how his team runs, what's the best thing to do, then talking to the medical. So I think it's more. He's in lock. He's okay with it. I thought it was interesting when they, the team releases that unscripted show that they did a lot. Yeah. And he was talking to Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter when they first got there. And he was saying, like, listen, we don't practice that. We don't practice. I'm paraphrasing here, but we don't practice that much. But we do it so that when we're in practice, you got to go full force. So that's why I think he's more upset if guys aren't going full force. But I think he realizes that he wants his team, especially after playing so many games in the for the regular season, the playoffs go as deep as they did, and then having to turn around and start training camp a lot and not have as much time to rest. So I think he's okay with it. He just wants the guys when they're on the field to basically exude everything they got in that moment and then come back.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because all the Georgia guys, Chris, they're like, hey, man, we practice tougher at Georgia. Yet the Eagles seem to be better conditioned than Georgia. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. Maybe they do have some kind of secret sauce that we're not seeing because they were one of the best conditioned teams in the NFL last year. They ran all that tempo. They seem to always be better prepared for it than the opponents. They got something going on. Maybe they have figured something out.
Yeah, and then maybe something in those shakes they put in those post practice shakes that helps them out, what have you. But yeah, it's I think when you look, yeah, it's better if it's not as much wear and tear as the season progresses, and it's especially with Georgia too. Like a lot of these college teams, when you look at what they do in terms of you got to practice, you got limited things. You know, they basically at the facility all day with, and oh yeah, you got to study too, depending on the school. But yeah, you got to make sure you see a lot of that stuff in there. I don't know, maybe it's Georgia food, what have you, but they put a lot of money into the science and try to make sure they recover to be long lasting when it comes to that.
All right. Speaking of Georgia guys, although he's a couple of years removed, DeAndre Swift would be one as well. Philly guy, Georgia guy, he checks all the boxes. Yesterday, a lot of balls came his way, different looks out of the backfield, lined up wide, empty backfield looks. John and I have suggested all along during the offseason, don't think the Eagles, just because they got rid of Miles Sanders, are going to end up throwing the ball to the backs 150 times. They did it less than any team in the National Football League last year. But they've got a guy like Swift who's got a track record of being able to do it. How big an addition to the offense do you think it's going to be? At least the way they line up designs to get Swift in the passing game, or do you think it's just day one? Don't read too much into it, Joe.
No, I think they're going to use him. I think they're going to use him not a lot. Like he's not going to be like the third highest target guy, but I think he's going to have his mark in the passing game. And also not just that, but when it comes to motion, because you see a guy who's actually a threat to catch the ball and do something with it afterwards. Not like with Miles, it looked like there was times when it wasn't the cleanest of catches when they did throw it that way. With Swift, you know, like, hey, you know, he got a good receiver. So now if you're a linebacker or you're safety, you see him actually moving toward the flat, you got to respect that. And when you respect that, you got so much spacing now for everybody else in the middle. So I think they're going to, and I wouldn't be surprised if like early on they make a conscious effort to at least do like 2 or 3 passes to him early in the season. So teams they'd see that and like, oh no. And then when they start to over adjust, then that just frees up other stuff down the line.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to use them. It seems pretty, because going back to the OTAs, that's what I noticed first was, you know, they were putting him out wide, you know, maybe some of those bubble screens is DeAndre Swift instead of a receiver. But boy, I saw in the red zone, and it was the Tristan McCullum, I believe that was the interception where he got the he got the jump on Swift, and this is the third team defensive back. You know, they have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. You know, nothing against DeAndre Swift. He's a very good receiver or a running back. I'm worried about getting those guys, feeding those guys. Those guys are dominant players. I think it's as simple as that for the Eagles. I don't think you have to muck it up. That's my thought process.
I don't think you do, but I think even more. I think, you know, it can be get even more production if you start to have him in there. You have to worry about it because if he frees up, if he does what he's supposed to do, and he does get those sweep passes, and even if it's like you throw it out there on bubble screens, you know, they for 4 or 5 yards, it's basically the same as a run without no one behind this offensive line. So at least when you get those teams thinking that way, they can see more one-on-one stuff. When we see AJ Brown, we see Devonta Smith, see Dallas Goedert one-on-one in the red zone, it's a good situation that usually pops up after that too. So it could just be free it, go eat your vegetables early, and then after that, hey, you got dessert when it comes to the other 3 guys.
All right, want to jump over to the defense for a couple of minutes. I know you and John both noted it from the OTAs this season that Christian Ellis made some plays. He came up with some picks. He flashed a little bit. And sure enough, day one here in practice, he flashes with another interception. It's not like he's supplanting Seth Joyner. He could be beating out Mr. Morrow at the other linebacker position. How much is it going to take for him to be playing right aside Nicobe Dean as starting linebacker week 1?
I think I'm really curious to see when they actually put the pads on it. If they probably won't tackle the ground, but how he does in the run game. That's where I really think, like, his coverage skills, I like him a lot. But I think the one thing that we saw with Morrow with the Bears last year, looking at that stuff, were missed tackles, and he's a little lighter on the lighter side when it comes to two. It's just the frame she's a little bit lighter too. So I think Morrow's going to start the season as a starting linebacker next to Nicobe Dean. But I wouldn't be surprised if they put Ellis in more situational stuff, getting his feet wet. And if Ellis starts to really excel, say if we're looking at midway through the season, Ellis still excelling and Morrow is struggling against the run game, then maybe they make a switch then. But I think Ellis is and this is why we were talking over extra Thursday. Like, all right, it was a good, in the OTAs, he did really well yesterday. But I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to see more and more. You see the traits that make him. You see starter traits when it comes to him.
Yeah, he because he had that one interception. That was a bad throw. Let's be honest. It was generated by the pass rush, but hey, he was there. He made the play. I don't see the other linebackers making plays. Why not just give him a chance and say, all right, I'm going to look at him in the first team because I know what Nick Morrow is. Nick Morrow can play. He's an NFL player. But I know what he is. His upside. He's been around long enough. Granted, it was in Chicago, but Sean Desai knows it better than most. You know what he is. Let's see. Let's throw him into the deep end of the pool. Give him the first team reps. If he can do it, great. Upgrade. If he can't do it, you go back tomorrow. Thoughts on that?
The things, especially when we hear so much about guys and their roles and everything else, I think they want to get their roles set in. Like, don't get me wrong, I would like to see him with the first team just to see like if he can do that. Like, I think if anything, maybe that joint practice against one of those joint practices against the Browns, maybe you do that just to see it when they go head to head and more stuff like that. But I think it's one of the things like, hey, get set for your like they're trying to get almost like a reliever, trying to get them ready for their roles and get them ready early on. So they expect like, hey, because Morrow's never played next to Dean for an extended period of time too. So you got to get those guys used to communicating, especially if they're going to be the starters too. So I think that's another key factor when you want that. So, but Ellis, I like him right now. I think Morrow's going to be the guy.
All right, our buddy Zach Mack. Sorry, we like guys named Mack on this show. In case you hadn't figured that out. Got the starting spot in the slot because although I was just glad to see that he wasn't part of the pup team, the guy who we expect to start when the season started was just limited in practice yesterday. Is that going to be Zach Mack's spot all year, the backup slot cornerback for the Eagles?
I think that's the best way he makes the team on that one too. I think when looking at that one, I think he would beat out Josiah Scott personally. I think he's got more size when it comes to that. He's got the versatility in case there is something that goes wrong on the outside that you can just move him out there. Say if Bradbury or Slay gets hurt, you can move him back out there if need be. And then we know what he can do on special teams too. So I look at him. If we had to compare Josiah Scott and Zach McPherson, I think McPherson will win out in that instance. I mean, Scott has moments where you look like, okay, you see him and go, hey, you know what? This guy is because he can play the slot more efficiently. You feel okay, but then you see he gets beat on the inside, and then there's a big play on that one too. So I think overall, I wouldn't be surprised if McPherson winds up being the guy at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, Josiah's interesting because he had some really bad moments, and those kind of overshadowed. He was solid at other times as well. Yeah. My concern with Josiah is at the end of the season, though, they decided when Avante got hurt again, they decided to move CJ in the slot and rotate Reed Blankenship in. That was a bad sign for Josiah Scott. I do think that Zach McPherson is going to be the backup nickel corner. The question is the outside. They have so many bodies. And as far as Ringo, we know Ringo's going to make the team. But can they get him up to speed quickly enough that if something happens, and you hope it doesn't, to Slay or Bradbury, there's a lot of bodies, but none of them are proven. Are we kind of skipping steps there saying, oh, well, so-and-so can do it? Or is it going to be Zach's going to be the backup everywhere? Outside, inside? everywhere.
He's your Jack Driscoll of the cornerbacks. He's gonna be the ones that you move around and say, okay, is it something wrong? Okay, yeah, go in there and we'll figure out all the other stuff on the back end. I mean, you look at I'm sitting there looking at like the guys shuffling in and out. Like even that third team, you're looking like there's some good names there, but it's just not proven. And
Eli Ricks did not look good when Boston Scott juked him out of his shorts.
I didn't know he had that juke in his repertoire. Scott did. I was like, okay, and you feel like it's like you're rookies. Your first day, you're 1-on-1. You want to make an impression, and the next thing you know, you're going one way, Scott's going another. It's not in a positive way. So it was rough. It was rough for him. But this team is deep is very athletic and deep at that position, and there's going to. It's rough to see who's going to be on that bottom tier, like who's going to get cut. There's going to be a name or two that's going to get cut. And you're like, ugh. I mean, anywhere from Greedy Williams all the way down to Ricks. It's so much.
By the way, I've been impressed with Mekhi Gardner more than Eli's got the bigger name, but I think Gardner's a better player. I think
he had a good pass breakup. Yeah, he had a good pass breakup yesterday too. And I thought you see that like positionally, he does, even though he may get beat or they may have a guy may have position on him, finds a way to get around him too. So I thought he did pretty well as well too. But Rick, I see some good things when it comes to Rick too. That practice squad is going to be deep or that late bottom part, but there's a lot. It's going to be rough.
All right, Chris Franklin, Tyree Tease Jackson. Are you in? Or are you out? You got to declare today. Now you can change your mind tomorrow, but I'm just asking you today. Tyree Tease Jackson, in or out?
Out.
Out. Damn.
I think he's out.
I like the kid. I so root for the kid, but every time you think he's got a chance to actually do something, he ends up getting hurt. He's probably going to happen again, but I'm sorry. I bought into the tease twice now. I'm buying into it again.
I think he'll be here. Why they'll just put him on the practice squad. I don't think anybody's picking him off waivers. So, but I thought, I don't know if you saw it, Chris, but when they were doing quarterbacks just throwing to receivers, Jason Michael was all over him because he didn't want a route that well. Was giving him the business.
He did.
And then like a few minutes later in team drills, he's making plays. I'm like, he's one of those guys. He's so gifted, but where's that balance? You're not doing what you're supposed to, and he's just playing. Maybe he's a Sandlot guy. Just throw it up because he's so gifted.
First of all, that's still a good sign for him. If Michael's still yelling at him, that's a good sign that maybe there's something there.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's right. I yell because I love. There's one of those types of deals when it comes there. But you look at him, you see the toe tapping thing. You think, I know he's got a couple seasons now, but having to worry about rehab more than having to worry about being on the field and catching thing, that plays up to him, and he still needs to round in the form. He's still a little raw in some of those aspects of playing the position. And every time you see him, like, okay, you could have made a juke here or shift here with the route. Then you see the toe taps in the back of the end zone. And you're like, all right, this guy could be a red zone threat again. It's consistency. It's the consistency with him of A, not only doing the same thing on the field, the right thing, but B, making sure you're healthy enough to be able to do those stuff on the field.
All right, Chris, we haven't had you on since the return of Dennis Kelly, the signing last week as a veteran backup free agent. How do you think he's going to be used? How do you think he's going to be deployed? Is it going to be swing left, right, at tackle? Does that kick anyone else inside? How do you think his role on the Eagles will? And it has to do, it's tied to the decisions they make on other players. But what do you think by the time the season starts, at least conceptually, his role is going to be? Because his role is going to be stand on the sideline and cheer for the 5 starters. We talk about getting guys time. I'm still ticked off they didn't get Nicobe Dean in there. Oh, offensive linemen stay on the field. They do not come off the field. So you hope that his main role is his cheerleader. But if he actually has to play, how do you think they're going to use him on that O-line this year?
Come on, you're not excited for him being on a field goal team, trying to block me right now. But I think he's your first option. I will put on if something were to happen to Jordan Mailata, he's your first option on the left side because he played it 3 games last year. He's played it multiple, I think 10 games over his career. He didn't allow a sack there last year. I think Jack Driscoll's a better right side guy. I feel more comfortable whether it be tackle or guard. But I think Kelly's the first guy that comes off on the left side. I think they go Driscoll on the right side. And then if there's and then the domino effect is we saw Brett Toth at center. I know Cam Jurgens, if something happened to Kelsey, Jurgens is the next guy in there. We saw Brett Toth at center again. I know he tried a little bit a couple of years, like the last couple of years. He's tried
to do ACL playing center. In that Week 18 game. Yeah, people forget he was the center. Yeah.
Yep. He's there, and then either Fred or Roderick Johnson. No, that's when they signed him. If that's the one that's like okay. And it still came to a point that when Jordan Mailata was talking to us during OTAs and he was asked who the backup left tackle was.
Yeah, that was funny.
And
I bring that up. I bring that up. I told you that, Chris, because I'm like, as you know, Jordan, he knows all our names, right? Like he makes it he's one of those guys. He makes it, his business to figure out the names of everybody who's down there all the time. He's just, he's that type of guy. Not everybody does that. That bothered me that he did not know their names because of how he is. I'm like, that can't be a good sign. If Jordan doesn't know your name, but that maybe I'm making too much out of it.
I think he did, but both guys were on the practice squad last year for the most part.
Yeah.
Fred's a big dude.
Fred, well, they're both
really
big dudes.
Yeah, both.
Fred is really big. Yeah.
I said, look like okay, what? Oh, hi. Those things, but yeah, they were more practice squad. I think they wanted a proven veteran in that spot, and that's where I think Kelly fills that role.
Yeah. Well, they really liked having the luxury of Andre Dillard. I don't think people realize they really liked that luxury, but you can't have that. Obviously, they knew they weren't able to keep it going. It's interesting when I think about how much they care about depth on the offensive line versus the running back room or the linebacker room. It's striking. Like they're worried about guys who don't even play on the offensive line, and they're like, we'll figure it out at running back and linebacker.
Because when you run an average, if you're a running back, you can average probably about 3 or 4 yards no matter what behind that line. So it's like, if instead of having to run around trying to juke and go east to west for like 60 yards, running back 4 touchdowns, trying to get 2 or 3 behind that line, they just they'll find holes for you. So they're an important part. They're just one of the main reasons why they're able to have success with probably the main reason besides quarterback. They have successful offense.
Well, I was glad that Jason Kelsey yesterday, who likes to go to the car analogy, didn't go Etzel for Dennis Kelly.
He called him part of the core 5, Dennis Kelly.
Since he went Tesla on Suopeta, who'll be fighting for his life to make this team. No car reference for Dennis Kelly, other than yes, he's one of the veteran guys. He's left outside of the core 4. He didn't go core 5. Didn't pull him in on that. But yeah, the Eagles always emphasize depth on the offensive line. All right, Franklin, need a prediction out of you.
Okay.
Friday's practice. You guys can kick back, relax, just write it, drop an article here or there. Don't have to make it over.
Relax.
Relax. You're right.
You'll be in air conditioning. You're not outside. That's relaxing. The question is on Friday, will you be in air conditioning? Will the Eagles go inside? Will they go early? I guarantee you they go short. John taught us earlier, if you're in the 50-minute range, close to an hour, it's a green practice. It'll be a different color on Friday when it's supposed to be well into the 90s by the time practice gets underway. What are you going to be doing Friday morning, Chris Franklin?
I think I'll be having to drive an hour earlier. I'm really thinking that's the case. So that way,
oh man, 42 is killing us, Chris.
Oh, it is. And I was coming from the South Lakes, and I'm sitting there like, what's going on that way? It was no matter what, 95, 76, it was all hell. But I think if anything, they started like they did last year. I think they started an hour earlier, and yeah, it's not going to be that long. It might be in shorts, might be sitting around like I might be doing a lot of stuff with that, but nah, it's going to be. If anything,
Might
I think
miss
hour
it
early.
on the wall. I got to take the Walt Whitman in. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's
You might have to drive to Newark and fly into PHL and get a shuttle that way. It might be faster where that traffic was going. It was bad.
Yeah, you guys are going to have to get out there early. I guarantee you, if they start by 9, it will be done before 10. There's no way they're going a full hour, even early before the temperature gets real high. It's not like it's going to be 68 at 9 o'clock in the morning. No, they will go quickly in practice. CF, always a pleasure. Thank you much for jumping in with us today. You know how much we're going to hit you up during the season.
I got to do it at C Franklin News on X. Follow Chris on X.
Dante Hall owns it now.
I've not seen the X guy. I like the X guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to get off on
NJ.com.
too much of a tangent, but did anything change other than their logo?
No.
Probably the number of lawsuits coming in for two. That's about it.
That's
That's about it.
lawsuits. Yeah.
Rebrand. What are you going to rebrand yourself as, Chris? Since everybody in the world seems to need to rebrand, what are you going to rebrand yourself as, Chris Franklin?
There's so many options. I mean, Jordan Mailata had C Money for me. I mean, there's the writer formerly known as Chris Franklin. There's a certain
You thought about this too much. I thought the Chris Franklin brand was too strong.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to mess with Coke, but I like C Money. I like C Money. I'm gonna go Jordan. Jordan's a great guy, man.
Yeah,
he's coming up with Brandon for you.
I would actually believe that if you had a pair of those green overalls, that maybe he really was invested. But since you didn't get the green overalls, Franklin, be careful. Don't let my
I'm saving everybody from seeing that. Nobody was. Ain't nobody got time for that. No.
By the way, they're selling those things. Did you get that email, Chris?
I knew that before they ever sent out an email because I was just looking for it. I saw one picture on X, I guess it was some social media platform, and I said, "Let me see if I can find another one." So I just Googled Eagles green coveralls. They're already in stores.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys that went out and bought them.
I got
didn't
the
have
press
them
release.
custom made.
Yeah.
They were already ready to be purchased by Eagle Nation.
Yeah.
Ladies, go to the club. You can see everybody out in those green overalls.
But I will say this: shame on them. They didn't have Kelly Green. As soon as that the notification came down, Kelly was back. They should have had Kelly Green overalls ready for Eagle Nation too, and they didn't.
That's right.
Great control job with that.
That's how you can remake your brand.
And if you follow
Eagle Green coveralls, Chris Franklin. That's all you, bud. I can absolutely see that.
I'll cut you guys in on the deal on that one. So I'll cut you guys in on the royalties for that.
If you follow C Money on X, you'll be able to see the green overalls.
Sounds like I want a damn music label right now. Nobody want to hear it.
Chris, go catch a bird, all right? And get a real bird. That could be part of your new branding. The bird catcher, Chris Franklin. CF, thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one now.
Thanks, bud.
From NJ.com. Rebranding right here on Birds 365. We'll keep our branding as is. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on the show next. Stay right there.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
save at Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, back to put a wrap here on Birds 365 with Mac and Mac. Will John McMullen be here tomorrow? We don't know yet. Best laid plans of mice and YouTube hosts get rescheduled by the Eagles and when they think they should or shouldn't practice. So you're going to have to wait on that. And despite what Nick Sirianni said yesterday, I am not an Eagle beat guy and or an Eagle employee, so I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. I'm just a radio/YouTube host. He doesn't want to think about the Super Bowl, doesn't want to talk about the Super Bowl. They're not prepping to go back to the Super Bowl. They're just prepping to be one day better. Beware the JETS, Jets.
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring that up. I meant to bring that up.
Aaron Rodgers not only restructures his contract, but takes a haircut to open up some cap room for the Jets this year. Mark my words, Johnny Mac, within the next 4 days, over the weekend, Monday, that's 4, maybe next 5 days, Dalvin Cook will be a New York Jet. Mark my words.
He's on his way right now. He's on his way to New York, North Jersey right now. He's taking a flight right now. Yeah, I mean, you're in for a fun season, Jody, because Aaron Rodgers has decided to stick it to the Green Bay Packers. I don't know how long the honeymoon is going to last because he's a bit of a nut job, but
and will Hard Knocks be the honeymoon ender? Will somebody ask him something or take a picture of something that he doesn't like? Because you're right, he's a diva. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks ever played the game, but he's got diva tendencies. As of right now, he's kept them all in his back pocket. When will the diva of Aaron Rodgers show up? Maybe not all year, and if that's the case,
that's
green Super Bowl, Philadelphia Eagles against the New York Jets come February in Vegas.
That's the whole point. He's going to be motivated this year to stick it to Green Bay because he hates Green Bay, not the city. He hates the organization. He hates the GM. He wants to stick it to them. So I think you're fine for this year. Then moving forward, I don't know.
But he's already made the commitment for 2 years. He restructured the contract.
No, I meant I don't mean that. He's going to play. He's not going to walk away. I mean, then you're going to start to see some of those diva tendencies pop up at some point.
That is possible. You're right.
That's what I mean. But this year he's going to be focused on sticking it to the Green Bay Packers, and for that reason, you're going to be a very happy football fan this year. That's my prediction.
2 days ago, I should have doubled down on the stupid Phillies last night, though. Instead, I went in a different direction. I bet the Phillies to beat the Orioles 2 nights ago. So I took the money that I won there and reinvested it in Jets versus the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I should have just gone to the Phillies again. I could have doubled it again today and made an even larger bet. But Eagles beat the Jets 80-1. Jets beat the Eagles 90-1. Be ready for it. I know Coach is pissed at me right now because I'm talking about the Super Bowl, including the Eagles. Sorry.
And the Jets have a tougher road to hoe because of the conference.
Right,
but boy, if I had to pick one or the other, I'm going to piss off Eagles fans. I'd pick the Jets to get to the Super Bowl before.
Really? Over the Eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to lean toward the Eagles just because of the difference in conferences.
Well,
the AFC is so
and
much
that's
tougher.
the only reason it's a question for me. I think Rodgers is so, what I just said, is so focused on sticking it to that team. I think you're going to see something special from him this season.
And the Jets have some weapons.
Oh, Garrett Wilson is going to be a
Wilson's
superstar.
going to be huge this year.
Superstar.
Agreed. All right, Johnny Mac, the people will have to be tuned to find out whether you're coming on and then getting out for Birds 365 or out altogether. If I see you in the morning, I'll see you in the morning. All right?
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see. We'll see how things shape. I'm sure we'll have all of 30 minutes advance notice.
You'll have advance notice. We'll have advance notice. You don't need notice. You just need to know to be back here on Birds 365 tomorrow in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.